So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our last Meet the Candidates here for the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce. We've been so happy to provide this as a resource to our members, and we're honored to be joined for our last Meet the Candidates with our sitting U.S. Senator, Senator Joni Ernst, who is running for re-election. Senator, thank you for being with us today.
Of course, Drew. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for joining today.
Well, just to walk through really quick the process, I know the attendees have been on a couple of these, but I want to do it for the senator's sake. So we'll just kind of have her provide some brief comments, giving us an update for a few minutes of things that she's hearing on the campaign trail, some of her priorities, things along those lines like we've done with the other candidates. And then we'll jump right into the Q&A. I'll remind attendees that if you do have a question, I'll be the only one that asks the senator, just out of, making sure that we keep it orderly. But do type your any questions you may have in the chat box, and we'll make sure those are asked to the senator in the order that they're received. So with that, we will turn it over to the senator for some opening comments from her. Thanks, Senator.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Drew, and thank you so much to everybody for joining this chamber event. It's good to spend some time with you. I hope that in the future we're able to get together face to face, though. I know COVID has been really, really hard on everyone. But again, I am Joni Ernst, and I am currently the United States Senator, the junior senator for our great state of Iowa. And I was born and raised on a small family farm here in Southwest Iowa. I still reside in Montgomery County in Red Oak, not too far from where I grew up. So I worked my way through college and went on to provide service at the local elected level as a county auditor here in Montgomery County, then moving on to the state Senate, where I represented Southwest Iowa, and then moving into the United States Senate. I've also served my state and my nation in the U.S. Army Reserves and the Iowa Army National Guard, where I did serve as a company commander in Operation Iraqi Freedom, leading 150 of our wonderful Army National Guardsmen. Went on to serve as a battalion commander in the Iowa Army National Guard and retired after 23 years in uniform. So really appreciated my time in various leadership positions throughout public elected service, as well as my time serving, again, my communities, my state, and my nation in uniform. Some of you will remember the flood activities that we have seen in recent years. I did serve on the ground with the Iowa Army National Guard during the summer floods of 2011. I was also serving in the Iowa State Senate at that time. So very, very familiar with the challenges that we have along the rivers and making sure that our communities remain safe. So I've had the opportunity to work at the state and now the federal level in working with the Army Corps of Engineers, making sure that we have the right process in place to ensure that our levees are strong, our communities are protected, and our businesses have a fighting chance. So I've also been active in the role of COVID too. In the last year, we've really had some hardships there. But in my capacity in the United States Senate, I do serve on the Small Business Committee and have been able to provide relief for our small businesses through the Paycheck Protection Program. I was a co-author of that plan that allowed 61,000 small businesses across the state of Iowa access $5.1 billion to keep their businesses afloat and their employees paid during a really challenging time. I'm also promoting opportunity for a second pass for those hardest hit small businesses, and allowing access to other types of organizations like our 501c6s, which would include all of our chambers across the state of Iowa. So we still have a ways to go. Unfortunately, the plans that I've provided for the Paycheck Protection Program second pass, as well as support for our healthcare systems, very important to rural areas, child care initiatives that I've worked on, additional dollars for our farmers, additional dollars for our schools. All of that has been blocked twice now by our Senate Democrats. So we will keep working on this, I guarantee you. It is very important that we keep our businesses afloat, get our moms and dads back to work, and provide relief in the healthcare space. So beyond that as well, folks, it is a challenging election cycle. And while I am out covering the state of Iowa, physically visiting every single county, every single year of my term, it has been challenging. But even through challenges, we have to recognize that leaders don't hide in the basement. Leaders do lead from the front. And so going out, moving safely and responsibly, I have been able to continue connecting with the communities that have been hardest hit, whether it's through COVID, through the derecho that challenged a huge portion of Iowa in this last summer, whether it's drought affecting our farmers. I am out there visiting with people face to face, looking them in the eye, answering their questions, and making sure that I am assisting with necessary relief from the federal level. I also have the blessing, because I came from state government, in working very well with our state elected officials and having that network of collaboration so that we can get things done for the people of Iowa in a fast and effective manner. So again, I am just so pleased to have the opportunity to seek my second term in the United States Senate, and I certainly appreciate your perspective as well, being engaged in your communities, engaging with business. I do understand how important it is that we have pro-growth policies in place and working on deregulation to make sure that it's sensible but not overburdensome, making sure our taxes are low, not only for our hardworking families, but also for our small businesses. And then as well, providing an environment that will take us out of COVID and allow our economy to be booming yet once again. I certainly appreciate your time this morning, and I look forward to taking your questions too. So thanks, Drew, for the time.
Of course. Thank you, Senator. Our first question actually comes from one of our city council members, and he's also an employee at Ameristar. His name's Chad Hannon. He asks about infrastructure, and he says the city of Council Bluffs, like many other cities in the state of Iowa, are at least 25 years behind on infrastructure improvements with no reasonable way to fund or catch up, and our citizens cannot afford the tax increase that we may need to complete the work. In your next term, what could be done to help cities like Council Bluffs catch up and provide a better quality of life to our citizens by providing necessary infrastructure?
Yes, thank you, Chad. And it's a really great question because I also serve on the EPW committee, the Environment and Public Works Committee. And Chad, we recognize the challenges that we have across the United States. And so over the course of the past year or so, those of us that sit on the Public Works Committee have been working on an infrastructure package that is robust. It is more than just a highway reauthorization bill. We allocated, or we're allocating or authorizing the expenditure of $287 billion on our nation's infrastructure. And this is a plus up. It was an incredible package that we worked on for quite a while. And the amazing thing is that it passed out of our committee unanimously. 21-0 in the United States Senate. So it is a significant package. It will push more of those dollars down to our state and local jurisdictions. So as a city councilman, you understand the challenges with drawing down those dollars. So, we have the plan in place. We need to see it pass through the full Senate and be agreed upon by the House. But we feel that we do have some momentum because it was a huge bipartisan package. But what I've spoken to many of the different groups about, including the Iowa DOT, the Iowa Motor Truck Association, and so forth, is the fact that we really need to find a different funding structure. The gas tax model, while that has served a great purpose in the past, when you see a push to move more towards electric vehicles and the fact that our vehicles are getting better mileage, that gas tax is not going to continue to increase as our needs are increasing. So we really do need to find a different structure for paying for, our infrastructure. And we all need to participate in this. It needs to be a bipartisan solution and one that will work for our consumers as well. So it's an issue I'm heavily engaged in, and I'm just so thankful that we've been able to work in a bipartisan way in the EPW committee to provide some of those solutions for our communities.
And Senator, the next question comes from another one of our local leaders, this time the mayor. He starts by thanking you for helping the city in its efforts to gain control of the Western Historic Trails Center, but then he has a follow-up question. It was
Sure.
land that neither the National Park Service or the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs wanted. Even though all parties with an interest in the property wanted this transaction to happen, it still took 4 years. It appears to be symptomatic of problems moving legislation forward in Washington. How can we improve this process?
Yes, this is a really lengthy and difficult process. And not only have we run into it in Pottawatomie County, but we've also run into instances even further upstream up in Northwest Iowa. We have some issues there as well. And it is a lot of time and research that goes into understanding who owns what parcels of land, who is willing to take on ownership and responsibility for those parcels of land. But then also moving legislation which would direct funding or ownership to certain groups. There's always, there seems to always be hiccups in this process where you find one member who can block any ongoing legislation. So it's going to continue to take a lot of lobbying and visiting with other members to make it happen. We run into these issues more than I would like to see. But again, in the Senate, we have a tradition, even one member can block a piece of legislation. So we will keep working on it and just keep updating me and my team from what you're seeing on the ground. And I'm always happy to help out.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mayor Walsh, for your question as well. Our next question is from another member of the City Council this time, and Joe DeSalvo. What is the likelihood of a second round of PPP for small business in the near future, as well as streamlining the forgiveness program to those who received less than 100,000?
Yeah, I think that the likelihood is very, very good. I am actually really excited about it. What we have seen, of course, the Democrats in the Senate have blocked the legislation that would do that. They've blocked it twice now. Um, and this is the really horrible thing about being so close to an election, is that politics are getting in the way. I do anticipate that after we have moved through the election, you will see another pass at the Paycheck Protection Program. So we'll see that second pass, and the likelihood, actually, I think the threshold that we've decided upon is $150,000 or less. You have streamlined forgiveness, which we think is very, yes, is very, very good. On average, what we've seen, and the average of loans out there, and I apologize if the number's not quite right, but is somewhere around $34,000 per business. That's on average across the United States. So if we can just streamline that process, forgive all of the loans that were taken out below 150,000, man, we'll be golden across the state of Iowa. We will be golden. So I do think right after the election, people will be able to come back together. Most of what we have in our COVID-19 recovery package, it's bipartisan, but they just don't want to move on it before the election. So I really do think that we'll be able to come together once everybody's jets are cooled and you take a timeout. We should be able to deliver on that.
Thank you, Senator. And Joe, Councilman
Yeah,
DeSalvo,
thanks,
thank you
Joe.
for your
Appreciate
question. That was a very important topic to cover for our
that.
small
Very
businesses.
important.
The next question comes from one of our board members, Dan Rutledge. If the ACA is deemed unlawful by the Supreme Court, what becomes the law of the land in regards to healthcare?
Mhm. Well, that is an important question, and one that a lot of folks are asking about. And the important thing to remember is that the likelihood of it just going away is not very strong. So there would be some sort of a phase out period in order for Congress to put in place a new law of the land. And we actually have a number of different packages that we've worked on in the past. And when we went through the ACA repeal and replace efforts, the hard thing was that we were all in very different camps on what should be the law of the land. One of the plans that I did back would protect people with pre-existing conditions. It was a model that came actually out of the state of Maine, where those that had medically complex situations or pre-existing conditions, they would be able to purchase the same insurance products as everyone else at the same rates as everyone everyone else. But what would happen is if those people that had those complex situations, if the cost of their care exceeded what the insurance companies were allowing for those insurance policies, it just rolls over, and then the state and federal government pick up the excess cost. And so no additional cost to anyone with pre-existing conditions. It was a system that worked very, very well in the state of Maine, but became outlawed when the ACA was put into place. So I would favor some sort of model like that. So it assures that everyone with pre-existing conditions are covered, and that it is affordable quality health care. We're also working on some other avenues to bring down the cost of health care, things like prescription drugs and so forth. We really need to see that move forward as well. But again, it would be a phase out of whatever parts of the ACA were deemed unconstitutional. And then it would be up to Congress to come up with a plan to replace that. So I feel confident we'll be able to cover anyone should it happen. And it may not even happen, folks. That's the things to keep in mind, is that this case, with the ACA, it may not be struck down. If it is, then Congress has to do something about it.
Thank you again, Senator, for your response on that one. The next question comes from Jim Folge, and it also regards healthcare. He thanks you for some of the efforts you've had to roll back some regulations that may have been in place from previous years. And one thing he notes is that the Affordable Care Act put a strain on payroll costs, with insurance costs continuing to go up. Do you think costs might go down if we give insurance companies and health providers more flexibility in what benefits they need to cover?
Well, I think that is one avenue, Drew. Obviously, when the ACA went into place, the wonderful thing about the ACA is that everyone had access to insurance. But what the ACA did not do was control the cost of health care. So everybody that understands the way health insurance works, if costs continue to go up, your insurance rates are going to continue to go up. So now we're in a situation where premiums have doubled for those that are individually purchasing insurance. Premiums have doubled since the ACA went into place. It hasn't brought healthcare costs down. Insurance rates continue to go up, and now we have many families that if they make a little too much to get, the federal government subsidies, many of those families that are caught in the middle, they can't afford their health insurance. So we do have to work on the costs associated with our healthcare or healthcare providers, making sure that we have flexibility within different plans that can be offered to individuals and families. And we must be able to maintain employer-sponsored health insurance. My opponent has stated she wants to phase out employer-sponsored health insurance and instead offer a public option. We have independent studies, they're not partisan based, but those independent studies of the public option that's being offered by a number of the moderate Democrats would actually bankrupt up to 52 of our rural healthcare systems across the state of Iowa. So make no bones about it, the public option is basically a truck stop on the road to Medicare for all, which many of our healthcare systems say is not the right avenue for us to take. So allowing flexibility, greater plan options out there, absolutely one aspect that we should be looking at to lower those healthcare costs.
Thank you, Senator. Our next question comes from Superintendent Ernst of Lewis Central Community School District. How do you plan to specifically support public education and the funding of public education in your second term?
Well, specifically, we do have to step up what we can do at the federal level. And because I know you understand, Superintendent, that most of your funding does come from local property taxes. So I used to serve as the Montgomery County auditor and would take in our city budgets, our school budgets, the county budget every year. I think it's somewhere around 87%, and please correct me if I'm wrong, comes from local property taxes. The rest will come from state and federal level supports. But I have always advocated that we can use less federal bureaucracy and redirect those tax dollars that we are pulling from all of you and paying people to sit in cubicles in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Education. We could actually push some of those dollars right back down to the local level. I think Iowa has a fantastic educational system. One of the very reasons why I wanted to come back to Montgomery County after my former husband retired from the military was because I had such a phenomenal public education here in Montgomery County. And I wanted my daughter to be raised in Iowa and have that great experience as well. So again, making sure that we can keep property taxes in check and provide for what you need, but then as well at the federal level, making sure we're not overdrawing on tax dollars that really should be staying with those local students. So, we'll look at ways that we can lessen the burdens. We could talk for days too about a number of federally mandated programs that maybe local jurisdictions would like to see changed, maybe less mandates, and thus saving some dollars for our local community schools as well.
And our next comment comes from Dan Harbeck with Google. And he says, Senator, thank you for your leadership and being a champion for helping folks access digital skills training to advance their careers and grow their business.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. And any type of learning that we can have out there is fantastic. And you know quite well, Dan, too, that with virtual learning going on right now in an age of COVID, we have to make sure we're providing those supports. I was just laughing earlier. I'm actually at my home in Red Oak today. I'm getting ready to kick off my RV tour. But just this last spring when COVID hit, my daughter was sent home from West Point, and she was camped out in the living room right next to the kitchen area here, doing her online courses. And then she had a couple of friends that would come over, and our internet capability was being a little stressed because I was trying to work from a little spare bedroom that I use for my home office with all the COVID conference calls and Zoom meetings and you name it. But we know how important digital learning is in today's day and age. And COVID-19 has just really shown us how important it is to have the broadband, the technology, and the platforms to support it. So thanks, Dan, so much.
And it's important to commend and note too with the Blink system here in Council Bluffs that Google, the Iowa West Foundation, the school district, and the city and other partners were so important in implementing to make sure that we had adequate internet coverage for the community.
Yes, and thanks to everyone that was able to contribute to that effort. Google, thank you. I know how important that's been.
Another key issue that's really important for our members, as you can imagine, and you've heard this from me before, is workforce development. Obviously, that's the number one issue that our employers and our members are dealing with. Can you talk a little bit about some things that you've already done during your time in the Senate and things that you hope to do going forward if reelected regarding workforce development and making sure that our workers have the skilled workforce they need?
Yes, of course. And I am a huge proponent for workforce development. And we know in the state of Iowa, really at any given time, we have about 60,000 jobs that are open. I know COVID has impacted that greatly. But of course, we need to make sure that we have a workforce that has the skills that are right for the occupations in our communities. I have worked on a number of efforts, and probably a lot of you don't know that in a prior life, many years ago, I actually worked as a Job Training Partnership Act work counselor for a technical college. And so I was taking those students, and many of them are non-traditional students. They've already been in the workforce, but maybe were laid off at a job, or the job requirements had changed and they didn't have the most recent skills. So I would take those that were long-term unemployed, those that were economically dislocated, and find the right program for them where we had open jobs in the community. And so I am a firm supporter of our community colleges, our technical schools, the Career Ready program that we already have in the state of Iowa that the governor has really grown and developed. Huge supporters of those efforts. So those are the things that I see are very positive, we wish to maintain. I'm also very supportive of Pell Grants going into our prison system, and some people might be like, oh my gosh, why would we spend dollars in our prison system? It is very important because they are a group of individuals that have been incarcerated. When they come out of the prison system, we want to make sure that they have the skills and the abilities necessary, one, to support the employers who really need that labor pool, but then also we want them to find dignity in a job and be able to support themselves and their families. And when they do that, there's less recidivism with those that have been incarcerated before. So I'm a firm believer in that. And then, of course, allowing employers to pay off already accumulated student debt for their employees, providing tax credits to those businesses that do that, always very important. But there's a number of ways that we can deliver skills training, whether it's through our high schools, through our tech schools. I'm a huge supporter of all of those programs. Love working in them, love the time that I spend actually as a counselor with those types of programs, and I'll always be supportive and making sure that we can close up that labor pool gap that we have here in the state.
And thanks for mentioning specifically kind of the prisoner population. That's something I know the state legislature actually worked with COGS and some other groups to actually get some things passed that help build workforce housing,
Right.
that using that population to give them some skills with building trades. So there's really good opportunities out there if we were just able to harness them and give those skills to that population that can be valuable going forward.
Yes, absolutely. And it leads into all of these other issues too, with workforce housing and our aging housing stock in many of our rural communities, being able to tap into the talents that we see being developed through our prison system and then applying that in some of these rural areas. I mean, it's just a win-win all the way around.
It certainly is. And one big issue I want to touch on too, before we kind of close things up here is, trade has been a big issue in your time. And I know we've had conversations about this too, and you've been a big proponent for Iowa and the trade disputes and talking to the president quite a bit about those issues. But can you talk a little bit just about trade and where you see that going forward? Obviously, we've seen some things with USMCA, with China, with some of the EU and Japan and some of the other TPP countries. But just can you touch on some of the big trade issues that you see that needing to be addressed going forward?
Yes, and I think we are really starting to hit our stride when it comes to those trade agreements where we were able to secure the USMCA. It's now being fully implemented as of the 1st of July. So our two largest trading partners with Iowa, Mexico and Canada. So that by far was the most important trade agreement that we could get done. Number three trade partner to Iowa is actually Japan, and we have completed that trade deal as well. Number four is China, and we do have the China phase 1 deal that's done. Of course, because of COVID, they have lagged behind. But when I talked to Bob Lighthizer, the US trade rep, just not that many weeks ago, he said that China has really stepped up their purchases of our agricultural products. And we've actually seen some record purchases by China, specifically in the areas of corn, soybeans, and pork. So we are well on our way with the China phase 1. I would say even with COVID, we're really seeing them live up to that. That is a little surprising. It's China, but they are really trying to get to where they need to be, and we will hold their feet to the fire. As it comes to some of the other Trans-Pacific Partnership members, we are working on bilateral negotiations with a number of those countries. So I asked the trade rep, because I was a fan of TPP. I wish that we would have stayed in that. So when I asked him about that, he said, we are working on those bilateral agreements with those countries. And he said, most of the larger countries that would benefit the United States we're actually coming to agreement with them on these trade deals. And he said a few of those other minor countries over there, they really don't have a significant impact in trade for the United States. So what we're doing is targeting the much larger countries. Hopefully we can get those bilateral negotiations done. But then also we are working on other types of trade agreements with India, which would be a huge boon for the United States. We're working on nations in Africa, which initially wouldn't be a huge bang for our buck, but could pay off very much in outlying years. So there's a lot going on in the trade space. I'm glad to be involved in it and promoting our ag products as well as our manufacturing overseas. But we've come a long way in the last several years, and I'm just really pleased that we're finally now hitting our stride in spite of COVID.
And one thing I want to point out is you mentioned corn, soybeans, and pork. Iowa is usually number one in all of those, just for people who may not know that on the call. So that's really important that those commodities are seeing an uptick in purchasing from China. And one thing Senator Shipley, who's on the call with us too, he noted is that China has been buying large amounts of soybean in the past 4 months and even in the last 2 weeks. So he just wanted to reaffirm what you had been saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks,
Um,
Senator Shipley.
The last thing I will ask is I'll just give you an opportunity to kind of say, is there anything else that you want to kind of say before we leave this Meet the Candidates event, just to kind of leave with people as they go into 6 days out from the election as to why you are the best candidate?
Well, thank you, Drew. And again, I have devoted my life to service to my communities, my state, and my nation, both in a capacity as a local elected official all the way up to the United States Senate, also serving my country in uniform. I truly believe that we live in the best country on the face of this planet. You know, I have fought so hard through the years to uphold our freedoms and liberties for this great United States of America. And I do not wish to see our country handed over to the radical left, those that would infringe upon our Second Amendment gun rights, those that wish to over-regulate our business and our industry, our farms. There is a smart way to do business in the United States, and I'm a proud supporter of our small businesses. So moving forward, you know, obviously I am going to continue to fight for our farmers because I was raised on a small family farm here in Southwest Iowa. I'll continue to be an advocate for our veterans because I've had my boots in that sand as well. I am a fighter for our working families and our single moms because I've had those struggles too. And then, of course, I will always be a tireless advocate for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence because I've had to overcome that in my own life as well. I will continue fighting in the United States Senate day in, day out for the people of Iowa. I know that we live in a great country and I wish to defend that country to no end. I will always be there for my great state of Iowa and for our great United States of America. So folks, I am humbly asking for your vote on November 3rd. This is going to be a contentious election cycle, but I am a proven and effective leader in the United States Senate. Over 60% of my bills are bipartisan. And I have been ranked as one of the most bipartisan senators of any state of either party in the last 25 years. Because folks, I understand that in order to get things done, we have to work together. So again, I am humbly asking for your support on November 3rd in this upcoming election, the general election. And I've been so honored to serve as your United States Senator, and I'm asking for 6 more years.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Thank you to all the attendees who joined us today and for all the other Meet the Candidates events. All of these events were recorded and we will be sharing the links on the website. So please do make sure that you go and you check out our Meet the Candidates events with all the federal candidates, as well as our interviews with the state and county officials as well heading into the election. These are just some of the resources we want to provide our members as we head into the general election in 6 days. Senator, best of luck to you on the last 6 days. I know you have a busy couple days ahead of you.
Thanks so much, Drew, Lori, thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined on the call today. I look forward to a day when we can all get together face to face again. God bless you all. Stay strong.
Thank you, Senator. We'll see you. Safe travels around the state.